Welcome to the Masters in Motion podcast, where we empower Masters athletes to reach their full potential. Join us as we delve into the world of CrossFit and showcase the strength, resilience, and determination of Masters athletes because we love this sport. I'm Jason Grubb with Rick Stevenson. Hey Rick, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was real good. Hi, Jason. Semifinals weekend. That's what made it fun.
I mean, right? Now that our semifinals is over, it's just like 2 or 3 weekends now of like, okay, I got to get home at night so I can catch up on all the live streams. And it's so much fun to just sit on the couch and watch people race through thrusters and snatches and crazy things for hours. I mean, I love it. It's better than a movie.
I'm always amazed then watching the elite athletes go and put yourself in their shoes and how fast and smooth they are and everything.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was, you read the test on paper and you think there's no way they'll get through this that fast. And then sure enough, you wait for each heat to go, times get progressively faster, and you're like, you just marvel at their athleticism. It's something to behold.
And I'll say that on the other hand, you're looking at them and like screaming at the screen, like, you gotta go, you gotta go. And being an athlete and a competitor, like, I know that they're suffering deeply and they can't go faster. If they're not going faster, it's because they can't. It's not because they don't want to. But I'm still shouting at the screen for someone to go faster in that final heat on that last event because the qualifying spots are so tight. Man, they had some really fun tests. Was there any tests in the semifinals, and I'm just throwing this at you, that you wish we had? Was there any one of those tests that you wish we had because it looked like fun?
Well, I'd say the last one, test 7, just because I think we would have been able to. Well, I take that back. They've never thrown echo bikes in a remote competition, but I could picture that one maybe adjusting the weight of the sandbags. But as Chase Ingram kept saying, it was not a burn the house down type of event because it was 3 rounds. It was 60 total toes to bar.
Right.
And the pace that you picked that first round, you hope you didn't go out too fast because you still had 2 more rounds to get done. But picking up that bag and just trying to get it over that finish line. For us, it would have been in 25-foot increments. Down and back probably or something like that.
For sure.
I like that. We couldn't have done the ruck or anything like that.
Right. No
runner, so that would have left us out of the snatch and run.
Now I will say 2 things. Now that you brought that up, I want to tell you my favorite event. But before I say that, I want to say that I was training in Little Rock, Arkansas for the past couple of weeks. Now I'm in Texas, but in Little Rock, I was training at a gym, and they had a semifinals athlete, like 27-year-old Adam, just a great kid. And so I got to kind of hang out with him and train with him. And he came to a training camp with me and a bunch of other people. And we had so much fun. And we were strategizing about the workouts when they were released. And, we were speculating that maybe the regionals, the semifinals, throwback to regionals.
Right. We do that all the time now.
All the time. So going back to the semifinals, wouldn't it be great if the individuals had to do shuttle runs for that 800 into those snatches? Like the great equalizer. Can you shuttle run? Because they're already on the air runner for the long sled pull workout, so let's get them doing shuttle runs. That would really be fun. And when I found out that it was an air runner, I was honestly disappointed in the lack of creativity. I was like, come on, the shuttle runs are a unique, challenging movement, and that would have significantly slowed them down and given them less time. Maybe they give them the extra minute on the heavy snatches, but imagine if they did 25 or 50. It would have been 50 shuttle runs. If they did that, 50 shuttle runs, and then they do a heavy snatch in like 2 minutes, that would have been amazing, right? I mean, that's just me.
It would have same stimulus that we would have that we were under, or the throwback to kind of what he did with the games last year, where they had the longer shuttle across the length of the field. So what was that? Maybe 84 feet or something?
Yeah.
Is that the length down and back a number of times? They had the length of the floor, save for the space for the barbell.
Yeah,
could have been an idea.
And I could see, now I'm going to argue back that like if they went 25-foot segments, like we did, they actually would have had plenty of room to do snatches, right? Because if they go the full 84 feet, now they're going to run out of room for the snatches. But if they went 25, 25, now they have a whole half of the floor for the actual lifting. And now, I mean, you've got just you could just watch them suffer. Only because I think from the entertainment value, the show of it, everyone did shuttle runs in the open, and we all suffered, and we literally just trudged through those. And to be able to watch these incredible individual young athletes do shuttle runs at a pace that we could never imagine, that would have been interesting. And then again, if they did shuttle runs after 185-pound snatches, we would see guys doing shuttle runs in some of the most, ridiculous times that make us look like our actual age, which is fair. That's fair. But I don't know. It's fine.
They only had to do it with the burpees, with the burpee pull-ups, I think, in the open. So they really weren't tested under a heavy load,
right?
Until after the shuttle runs, and then you had the thruster, the 1 rep max thruster. But hey, well, the events you like, you're gonna get to watch again the next 2 weekends. And the events you didn't really care for, you're going to get those as well. So it'll be fun to, as a fan, see the other regions take the floor in the next 2 weeks. Certainly looking forward to North America West with Vellner and Fikowski and Medeiros and a whole host of names. I mean, that's going to be something.
And they've been able to watch this past weekend.
Exactly.
They have, it's not necessarily an advantage on this week's competition because they're not competing against these guys really, but now they all have had an extra week to practice. They know what the workouts actually are, so they're not practicing shuttle runs. They don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about any confusion. They know what a legless rope climb from a sitting position looks like, what the requirements are for that, which I thought was a really fun and interesting. And I know in one of our future episodes, probably middle of June, we'll do a whole prediction episode about what we think we'll see in the game.
We'll see. Yep.
But
why not?
I think that was a fun element. And I know that they were maybe going to do that at the games last year, but it got rained out on their alpaca workout. But they had to go, from sitting position, legless up and legless down, which changes everything. It changes everything because the descent is brutal on that, right?
And you had to show control below that red tape line there at the bottom before your legs or butt hit the ground.
Yeah.
And I know, I can't think of the athlete's name. Annika Greer had the 1 rep, where she was given a no rep and she hollered enough to get the head judge over, and they actually gave her that rep before she started her second one.
I can't believe they fixed that on the floor. That was
which
insane.
Was a great correction. As much flack as maybe CrossFit did receive this weekend for some ups and downs we'll talk about, that's what the head judge is there for. And I think there's 2 of them on the floor. So at each time, good for them.
Good for them. And that makes a big difference for her. If she would have gotten no repped, she was close to the line. If she had to do 2 more reps, I think that was her first rep of her legless. I mean, that's a game changer.
2. Yeah.
That would have cost so much time.
Or you don't know if she would have even gotten,
right.
You only have so many pulls in your arms at that point.
Now that was one of those workouts where you saw them sitting there waiting for their arms to kind of cool off and be ready to go again. And that's where I'm looking at the screen thinking, like, you got to go. You could just go. Just do it. Just go.
Nope.
But then I remember myself standing there for our legless rope climbs after holding the kettlebell in the front rack position, just waiting for my arms to be good enough to do another legless rope climb, not from an L sit, not with a legless descent. I mean, sometimes you just know your arms, you know what you're capable of, and it's not worth risking the no rep, and you just wait.
Well, I think I heard Emma Carey's interview where they did a simulation last weekend, but there were so many missing pieces of information that she said, well, we did this differently, or we did that differently. And to your point, circle back, the folks in Europe and out west and then down in Brazil, I mean, they're all able now to practice the events as they will be tested, which I would suggest, depending on the athlete or the quality of the field, you might have as a whole significantly faster times across the board because everybody knows now what to do, what's expected of them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just that whole principle of the 4 minute mile. Once you know someone can run a 4 minute mile, now everyone can run a 4 minute mile.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
you see this, how fast did people pace on the 800-meter run before they snatched? What was their pace? I mean, the times of that these guys were getting after they were doing, 185-pound touch and go snatches and then running an 800. Like when I saw their times at first, I was like, oh, that's a pretty fast 800. Oh, wait. That was the 800 plus the 8 snatches. That's
Right.
insane to run that fast.
Yeah.
Insane.
And 800 on a air runner as opposed
Yeah.
to 800 on a track.
Yeah, it's not the same. Not the same. The
Oh,
the pain level, and you're just looking at a screen, just dying inside. If you haven't run on an air runner, that it creates a unique stimulus. For me, my entire posterior chain turns to fire. My
hmm
calves, hamstrings, glutes, all of the central nervous system is just is lit on fire, and you want to slow down so badly. I mean, it's the same thing like an echo bike versus an assault bike. It's just this
right.
slightly different machine that looks the same as running. Like the echo bike looks like an assault bike, but it's slightly different in such a way that it kills human beings. It just chews them up and spits them
Right.
out.
Right. Oh, memes for echo bikes. What would we do without them?
Right? Okay.
There's so many of
There's
them.
some
Yeah.
some controversy this weekend. What controversy did you pick up on? Did you want to touch on today?
Well, yeah, without getting, I guess, too detailed, because we still, you read both sides.
Yep.
I'm gonna ride the fence here. I mean, we saw athletes that were removed from the, I think, test two, which because of either prior injuries that they had disclosed that they weren't trying enough in the eyes of the games staff. I mean, I guess that's a way to explain it. And they thought they weren't able to compete further with heavy dumbbells coming up with the next event with that Linda with dumbbells and just undue stress and
Mm-hmm.
strain on your shoulder. And then snatching and stabilizing a bar overhead as well would have come up later that afternoon. So it's I think where I have a problem with that call at that time is our favorite YouTuber who puts out lots of content around this made the point and actually highlighted quite a few instances of games athletes, like specifically Will Morad in 2019, having a hamstring injury, not attempting a final deadlift but he knew he could do the rest of the event or the next event. And Catherine David's daughter famously sitting out 2015 or 16,
Yeah.
the first of the two-parter where she knew she wasn't going to get any pegboards, but she was saving herself for the next event, and she ended up winning the games that year. So, to not pull people in higher stakes and now to pull people at semifinals, I don't know. It just feels like there's a different application of the rules each year,
Yeah.
whatever the application is.
I felt that way too. I was, when my first initial gut response was, it is unfair if you sit out and choose not to participate in a particular event. Maybe there's an injury, because it
Hmm.
does give you an advantage in that next workout. And I mean, we certainly know someone can get a 39th, 40th, 50th place in one event, and if they really do well in some of the other events, they could still make it to the games. So I understood that argument that CrossFit made, but in the back of my mind, I felt those echoes of Katrin sitting out of the pegboards and other instances, and our favorite YouTuber, I say favorite, the
Hmm.
infamous YouTuber,
Correct.
but he, I watched it. He made some good points about all of those different people that, you're right, higher stakes were able to strategize. So what does CrossFit do? I mean, I think like anything else is just they standardize a minimum work requirement, and that's that. Right? I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's if you can't do one pegboard, or if you can't do 3 pegboards, it's a DNF for the event. If you can't do
Right.
one muscle up complex, it's a DNF, and that's that. I mean, that's a 0. Well, maybe you could continue. I don't know what happens with a DNF. I don't know. Whatever. But they
Well,
set.
yeah,
I think your DNF
DNF
is
is
a
different than a
disqualified.
zero.
Right. It is.
Correct,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct. A zero. Pay attention to Sydney Wells here in seventh place qualifying for her first games. She took last with 0 reps on test two. Now,
Right.
she might have been trying. I didn't watch that heat, so I'm not gonna speak about that. But she took last, 58th place finish, but
Yeah.
was able to accumulate enough points.
Yeah.
Her overall, she had 2 9ths, a first, a 12th, and a 14th. I mean, those are some
Yeah.
pretty good scores that could offset the damage that a 58th place, does. So
What?
very unusual. You see somebody take last in an event and still qualify.
I forgot about that. I remember watching it now that you mention it.
Hmm.
What happened there? Brooke really suffered there too, but they're both athletes. They can do muscle ups. Did they?
Maybe
What
the bag.
happened?
The
Yeah, but
bag played more role than we realize.
that's
Uh, I'm not sure. It's
it's
worth going back as long they haven't removed that yet from
no.
YouTube, so it's
No,
worth going back and
I
taking a
don't know
look.
what happened to on YouTube day 4. When I went to watch it, it was
Hmm.
gone. But thankfully, I found it on Facebook. I watched it. It was like my nightly entertainment, and it was gone. I was so
Gone.
stressed.
Oh, see, I
Um,
watched it all just about a half hour behind.
yeah,
Thank goodness I did.
that
I
is
didn't
gone.
realize that I heard today that they took it down.
Peculiar. I didn't see anything that they wouldn't want to have up there. I don't know what happened, but
No, probably an error.
when I will say that there were some surprises. I've got a friend, Tyler Christoffel. He's a Mayhem athlete, and he suffered on the first event. He really he just couldn't get the sled to move, and so he was battling and battling and battling, and he was, I think, 2 spots, maybe 7 points out of making it to the games. Last year, I think he was 1 spot out, and you just feel for at the end of each one of these, the males and the females, you see 2 athletes when they're announcing the last spot. They announce that single
Right.
athlete, and you watch this other person, just the devastation. It's really it's just tough to know that someone is 3 points away or even 7 points away. 7 points out
Absolutely.
of 300, 400, 500 points is just not that much. And I will say, I
Well,
will say that for those, I tagged you in the post, but if you haven't had a chance to read, Dave Castro made a post about Brooke Wells cheering Sydney Wells on the last event. It was a beautifully written story about how Brooke was cheering her twin sister on the last event with the purest of intentions. So yeah, everyone pause. Pause the podcast right now, go search Dave Castro. It's second or third to last post, and read what was written about Brooke Wells there. She didn't make the games. It's heartbreaking. I don't know what was going on this weekend for her. She hasn't shared on social media, and that's fine. She doesn't have to share anything with the rest of the world. But the
right.
fact that she was cheering her twin sister on, and her sister's going to the games is crazy irony, but also very beautiful, really cool. An interesting twist from my perspective.
Morning Chalk Up highlighted that if Brooke would have just been a second faster on event 5, she'd have qualified, and that was the difference between 9th and 10th place was 1 second.
Wow.
And that was 9 points. At that finish level it was a 9-point drop, and those 9 extra points. That plays into who finished ahead of her and behind her, but those 9 extra points would have given her enough points to qualify. So when they say every second counts, I think that was what the name of the first CrossFit documentary that they released
Yeah.
way back in the day. Every second counts. It sure does.
Well, and I know that, one of the things that you shared with me after the games last year, you tied for first, and because of a tie break, you took a silver medal. But I know that you did some of those replays in your head of the 1 second here, the transition there. It's in retrospect, you see, you can paint a completely different picture, right?
Oh yeah. Not putting on the last couple of 2.5s on the front squat or another calorie on the ski erg.
Right.
It's a lot of these competitions. That's a beautiful part about it. They come down to razor thin margins, and that's what you want to see. And I think you're going to see that played out in the age groups this year too. I think I love the stories that it tells, and we're gonna have an exciting first week of August for sure.
Well, I prefer a blowout. I would rather as a competitor.
Well, yeah, certain age categories.
But that's just because of anxiety. The reality is, when it's close, it makes it much more entertaining, much more satisfying, and you've got to fight for every single thing. And when you have 6, 7, 8 events, it really does end up like that. You're fighting for every calorie on every event, every second. An extra rep on a ring muscle up. Things can make huge differences, and they add up, right?
Right.
They just add up so much. But it was a really fun weekend. We've got 2 more weekends of individual semifinals, and we just chat about that because we love the sport of CrossFit, and when there's action to watch, we're on it. and semifinals creates that opportunity for us. I will say, and I think this is the last I have. I have two criticisms of CrossFit, and I just want to share these only because not to be a complainer. I just think that CrossFit sometimes they could just reword some things. So one, and I think you saw me post this to Instagram last week, but they made a post on Twitter and on Instagram. Semifinals start this week. It was a grand announcement, and what I wish they would have said was, Age Group Semifinals concluded last week. Now we're on to live individual semifinals, something that celebrates the fact that semifinals have been taking place for the past 2 weeks. Like semifinals happened and are continuing on with the individual versions of the semifinals.
Only difference is these are in person and these are for the individual athletes teams.
And just tie that together, right? And like I saw today, Wodapalooza made a post like from Wodapalooza to the games, and they listed all of the athletes that competed at Wodapalooza that are now competing at the games. All they've got to do is just do a quick search and do the same thing with Masters, but that's beside the point. The second thing, and it was an error in an announcer during the live broadcast last night, when is it Saxton or Spencer that qualified? It's one of the pan checks, and I never know.
Oh boy, I will go back and look. Yeah,
we're gonna leave it at that.
I mean,
these poor guys, they are all just so sweet. But one of the pan check
Spencer qualified.
Spencer qualified,
and Saxton had to withdraw due to injury.
Okay, so Saxton qualified. Saxton qualified. Okay, so the announcer said
Spencer qualified.
Spencer qualified. Gosh, Spencer. So one
they're
of the
only
announcers
twins too.
I know. He said something like, "It'll be really great to see a pan check at the games," and I was like, bro, there's already a pan check at the games. All you got to say is it'll be really great to have two pan check brothers at the games again.
Correct.
It's just this slight narrowing of focus to the individuals, which again, I love the individuals. I love watching it. I love cheering. I'm a fan of these guys. But just all you have to do is just have the phrasing be another year where we have multiple pan checks at the games. Boom. That's it. And they could highlight the fact that Scott Panchek is competing as a master, and that's going to be super exciting to see Panchek and Dancer and that whole slew of 35-year-olds, old school and new 35-year-olds competing in the masters category. Stay tuned. It's going to be an amazing year. Boom. Mic drop.
But nope, they don't take it the extra mile.
No, they just miss it.
I know.
I know. It's a slight miss. Anyway, let's take our focus to our semifinals. Last week, we finished with the 45 to 49-year-olds, giving some shout-outs to individuals that made it to the games, that punched their ticket. Now we've got 50, 55 plus, 60, and 65 plus. We just want to do a few honorable mentions and shout-outs to those that punched their ticket from the age group semifinals. I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever that was. I
think it's coming up to 3 weeks now, believe it or not.
Insane.
Feels like an eternity ago. First weekend of May, or last week in April. That's what it was. Okay, but ladies first, as always, on the women's side, on the 50 to 54, the defending champ, Kim Purdy, she's returning. She'll be battling again the lady who took second last year at the games, Tia Gebbe. We know she was in good form at Legends. She did not see Kim at Legends, but they did meet up at Wodapalooza. And also a returning friend of the show, Cheryl Brost. She'll be going back, I believe, now for her 10th game. And they're
Amazing.
Actually the rest of the women's field does have a lot of games experience. There are some new young 50-year-olds that are going to be competing this year. I haven't double checked the rosters yet, but as people accept, it's very unusual, as we know, to turn an invitation down. Froning being the exception to that one. So it will be a battle once again for the women, the 50-54 category. My age group, believe it or not, unlike last year, there are 9 of the 10 returning have games experience in one way, shape, or form.
Wow.
The defending champ, Sean Patrick's back, and he gets a special shout out because he was in 55th place after day 1 at quarterfinals.
Wow.
He then went third first on the last day and scooted in under the cut line there for the top 30 and has continued the momentum and had a very strong finishing second in semifinals. So the defending champ is back to defend his crown. Had as long as he's not having any nagging injuries or anything like that, he will be a force. But there are a lot of new 50-year-olds in the space that have just aged up. Nate Lauren, who's been on a team before with CrossFit Fort Vancouver, and then Age Groups himself. Bob Ruano, who's a regular fixture, of course, the games through the various age groups. Clint Paddock, shout out to him from Masters Chatter. He injured himself, had to have surgery, and recovered enough to make a return trip after a very strong showing in semifinals. And one new into the age group this year is Jason Leaves. And I'll tell you, we battled together down in Texas, and he is legit, but he's making his games experience. And also, finally, Corey Degg, 10 years between games experiences. 2013 to 2023. So props to Corey for battling and punching his ticket. I know that means a lot to him.
Wow.
Women, cool. Hard to 10 years, and he kept with the sport, got very close at times. I think the cut to 10 athletes a couple of different times didn't do him any favors, but nonetheless, he finished in sixth place. On the women's 50 to 50, 55 to 59 side, the entire podium returns from last year, from 2022.
Wow, that's amazing.
So you can look for another battle there with Shauna Bunce defending her title. On the men's 55 to 59, he's back. Mr. Kevin Kester, won the games in 17, won the games in 19, won the games in 21. And so we're on an odd-numbered year. It's 2023, and he is back. Easily sailed through open, quarters, and semis. He will be looking to stand atop the podium once again. Other games veterans that will be making an appearance in Madison in the 55 to 59 include John Kim, Jody Hendricks, Ryan Johamby, all veterans either in this category or in some of the younger age groups. On the women's side, in the 60 to 64 category, Susan Clark, 5-time champion. So I know you're chasing her for total overall championships.
Yes.
She took off in 2022, but she's back like Kevin is and has qualified here for another trip to Madison. Other names, Downing, McGill, Jarden, Howard, they're all veterans, all returning. But the lady I wanted to point out, and thanks to CrossFit HQ on their games site for refreshing the data, you can now look at games results going all the way back for the individuals to 2007, that first year at the ranch. And in 2010 was the first year of age groups. So for us, the masters here, there was a 50 to 54 men's and a 50 to 54 women's. And this lady, Lynn Knappman, has been there 12 times to the game. I read that. I was like, wait a minute.
12 times. Oh my gosh.
CrossFit is known for typos this year. But they nailed this one. She has been there every year that they have held an age group competition, save for 2020 with the pandemic.
Oh my
she
gosh.
is in the 60 to 64. She has podiumed a number of times. Various finishes, never stood atop the podium, but if you want a picture of consistency, I think her name is after that word in the dictionary. That is an incredible streak. Lynn Knappman. That is something to strive for. And then also in the men's 60 to 64, just like some of the earlier age groups, the entire podium returns. Shannon Aikens is the returning champ, going for back-to-back. Stuart Swanson is in that age group this year. He was first in the open and the quarters and the semis. So I think he's going to be pushing Mr. Aiken there when they get to Madison. Familiar name in the men's 65 plus, Dave Hippensteel, 9 times. He's 67 years old now. John George is also 67. They'll be in Madison as well. And then on the women's 65 plus, you actually have 2 68-year-olds, Patty Walkover and Sylvana Volpe. Both have previous games experience, but at 68, they're still competing and showing you just exactly what is possible and something that we can all celebrate as Masters athletes. So that's a look at the latter half of the age groups. There's a lot of good stories, and we'll do our best to tell them as we hear about them and move along, and certainly as we digest what occurs in Madison. But well, I'm sure the other outlets will as well. Some
Absolutely.
some
And
some good stories to continue to tell. And
we have we
shout
have
out to
some
Masters.
we have some new technology built into our podcasting system. We'd like to give a round of applause and some cheering to these athletes. Okay,
That took
officially.
a lot to get that going.
You
Yes,
don't even
right.
know. You don't even know. That was that's a major upgrade right there to the system. And
That's called learning on the fly, which is
seriously,
something we do
actually,
regularly.
I thought it would have faded out. I didn't realize when I stopped it, it would just be so abrupt. But we
That's a hard cut.
it was a hard cut. It's I love looking at some of the older age groups because, man, I don't know about you, but I want to be doing this with you when you're entering the 65-year-old age group and we're talking about Sean Patrick, and we're talking about the same guys, all Silvino from Italy, still like trudging his
Hmm.
way over the pond to come up and do the games 20 years from now or 15 years from now. I want to be doing this and having these conversations then. Whether CrossFit puts more spotlight on Masters or not, if they do at least this and maybe a little bit more, whatever, I will be doing CrossFit in this capacity for as long as possible because they do give us a stage and they make it appropriate for age groups along the way so that guys like you and I that love this stuff can be, popping off ring muscle ups
Hmm.
as 60-year-olds, 65-year-olds. I do, you watch Dave Hippensteel, he's probably one of the most public of the 65 plus guys, as far as I know, but I see him doing
Hmm.
legless rope climbs. And if I can do legless rope climbs at 67 years old, that'll be a good time.
That's something to shoot for,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah. Now, let's turn our attention to a quick topic that, we love the sport. We love cheering on the individual athletes. We love cheering on the Masters athletes and showcasing Masters athletes. At the same time, I think you and I always want to provide value Masters athletes that are just getting started in this sport. That, this may be their first week of CrossFit or their first month or their first year of CrossFit. So you and I were texting earlier today, and we just decided like maybe let's just throw out 3 tips that that we would have as advice for Masters athletes that are just starting with CrossFit. Now, I can't remember how old you were. I know that I started CrossFit at age 38. So I was deep within, well, I was just a couple years into the Masters age group.
Yeah,
How old were you when you started?
36.
Okay.
I was saying
Yep.
36. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, 36.
So technically, we're both
Oof.
Masters. We're both over the age of 35 when we
Yep,
started.
yep, yes.
But we haven't shared these tips with each other, by the way. So we decided, okay, you're going to share your tips, I'm going to share my tips, and a bit of a let's just see what our unique perspectives provide for advice for beginner master. So Rick, I'm
Hmm.
going to let you as the elder.
You-
I will allow you
Oh,
to go
thank
first.
you. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
Body feels like it today. How about you want to go back and forth?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
go,
let's do
you
that.
go.
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
that sound fair? All
I
right.
like it.
Yeah. All right. The first one, I'm going to say, because as a master's athlete, you step away from the gym. You're a little older in your life. You've kind of started to figure out how things work. You might have played sports earlier in your life, high school, maybe college. You've been active in some way, shape, or form, perhaps. But I'm going to say the first one is, despite those life experiences, I think you need to check your ego at the door when you walk into the gym. That's going to be one, because the better that you are a listener and receptive to teaching and coaching, which I don't want to get too far down because that ties in, the more successful I think you can become depending on what your goals are. So check your ego at the door. That's number one. How about for you, number one?
Yeah, I like that. So you're saying like coming in and just going full ham 7 days a week,
Yeah.
all in is
Oh,
not
I've
good.
lifted weights before. I know what to do. Oh, yeah. Yeah. 7 days a week. Well, I can jog 7 days a week. Why can't I do CrossFit 7 days a week?
Yeah,
Exactly. Or, certainly I've lifted before in my life. Here, move over. Let me show you how to bench.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Check the ego at the door.
I think that's a good one. Gosh, I like that one. Okay, so to be fair, I am going to be modifying my tips based on your tips. So
Okay. All
just
right.
to be clear, because it's such a good one. That's that's foundational. I love that. I could talk about that all night. I will go with the foundation of this entire thing is nutrition.
Hmm.
And it's something I didn't pay attention to when I first started. I just thought, I'm working out harder than I ever have, and I am sweating, and I was a guy that went 6 days a week because no one told me to slow down. And I wish I would have. I would have avoided some nagging injuries in those early phases if someone told me to slow down, check my ego, just hey, dude, pace yourself. But if someone would have told me about the benefits of really getting rid of sugar, getting rid of chips, getting rid of the bad habits that I had, drinking beer every day, it would have exponentially, it would have made me exponentially more productive as I was starting this process. It doesn't take, like you said, check your ego. It doesn't take 7 days a week of CrossFit to transform your life. It takes an appropriate amount of CrossFit, 3-4 days a week when you're getting started and learning the fundamentals. And if you tackle this nutrition piece by removing the junk, eating enough protein, getting enough carbohydrates and fats to sustain your performance but not promote body fat, man, that when I took me a couple of years to dial that in, to actually decide to dial that in. If I would have done that earlier, it would have been such a game changer for me. So
it turbocharges the results.
oh man, like nothing else. Nothing else. All right, back to you.
Okay. I'm going to say also, usually starting out, walking in the door the first time, you've mentally made that decision, like this is right for me. I just need to learn, is this the right place for me, depending on where you might be joining. We're assuming you're going to join a gym to get some coaching and the camaraderie of a class environment. But I'm going to say number 2 is communicate with your coach your goals, because and it might be picked up during that initial consultation that you have with with your coach. But everybody is probably going to have something different, and it could be to feel better, to move better, to lose weight, to get stronger, to learn new skills. You name it. Each goal will be different, and as a good coach, I think you're going to recognize what each individual's goals are, so that you can pay some attention and focus, and maybe have some check-in conversations with them from time to time, so that they're not just they've gone through the on-ramp class and then they're flailing away at trying to figure out a snatch with a PDC pipe. So make sure that you have those goals worked out ahead of time, so it gives you kind of something to point towards.
I would say my second tip is to have realistic expectations. In fact, I would say beyond realistic, I would say set low expectations as to what you think you can do in the amount of time that you want to do it. So maybe another way to phrase that is whatever you think you want to accomplish with your body in CrossFit in 6 months, double that or triple that. It's going to take actually 2 to 3 times longer to accomplish what you think you wanted to accomplish as a master's athlete. I have a lot of clients, a lot of comments on YouTube or that come in on Instagram from masters athletes that will share, I've been doing this for 6 months. I haven't seen, I can't see my six pack yet. And I'm like, bro, 6 months? Are you kidding me? You go see your six pack in 6 months? Dude, I didn't see my six pack for 18 months. I may have seen a top row, in maybe a year, but I'm also, if you've seen a picture of me without a shirt on, I have some genetics for whatever reason. Like my parents didn't have six packs, but for some reason, I have a six pack. It's just there. I have giant abs, but that's not everybody's body. And it takes a lot longer to create the transformation in your body than you think it will take. It takes a lot longer to develop the mobility to snatch to depth or even squat to depth than you think. It takes longer than, a year to get to the CrossFit Games. And I know I'm saying these things almost like tongue in cheek, but to be honest, I started CrossFit at 38, and by the age of 40, I thought, wow, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try to make it to the games because I'm a master's athlete. 40 years old at the time was the cut for masters. So I'm 40. I'm going to give it my best. And I wasn't even close. And I had been a religious devotee to this lifestyle, to this training. I was just starting to dial in nutrition a bit. I tried to get at 41 with everything I had. And that's 4 years in of dedication. And Rick, I tell you, when I say dedicated, it's like, this is all I do. When I choose to do something, I focus wholeheartedly on it. And it took me 5 years from start to qualify for the games. And even then, I qualified 13th. That was when they were taking 20 athletes to the games. So to be fair, set realistic expectations and expect whatever you want to happen to take much, much longer. And that's okay. It's totally fine for it to take longer. There's plenty of time. You could go to the games as a 67-year-old. It's fine. We got plenty of time.
Well, kind of playing off of taking your time, I wanted to say in another way of maybe crafting that message is just fully commit to your training, because I think you've said it many times yourself, consistency is key. And it doesn't matter what those goals are, whether it is getting to the games, whether it is becoming making that 10% cut to become quarterfinals eligible to participate in that, or proving to yourself that you can show up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday and recover smartly on the other days and be active, and not say, okay, this week is a good week, and then 2 weeks later I'll get back to it again. Or life happens to everybody. We understand that. It happens to you and myself a lot. But the more consistent you are, I don't want to say it's easier, but the results will come. Is that a fair way of how you just described it?
Absolutely.
The more consistent you be.
Yep.
It doesn't get easier. It just you see some. You see the efforts of your labor.
Yes, I used to say to classes I coached, it never gets easier, you just get a little better, but it never gets easier, right?
No, absolutely not.
as I laid on the ground after event 4 from our semifinals, thinking to myself, I'm done. I'm done. This was too hard. I don't want to do hard things anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
My tip 3 is the number one thing you can do to achieve your goals, whether it's to lose 20 pounds, become fit, become a CrossFit Games champion, qualify for the games at any age, wherever you're at. The number one thing you have to pay attention to, you have to do, is don't get injured. And that requires tremendous focus and effort as a master's athlete. There's a lot of things I can say off of this because it's such a blanket statement, but injury will take you 3 steps back as a master's athlete. Maybe take you 5 steps or 10 steps back, but at least 3 steps back. And it can be something so minimal. So I'll tell you guys, just a funny anecdote. I wear shoes around my house. I never walk barefoot. And now walking barefoot is very healthy for your feet. It's really good. So I think I'll try to be barefoot a very little bit, but to be honest, I don't walk barefoot because the risk of me breaking a toe walking around with a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old and their toys or their Legos, or if I step on a Lego and I have an overreaction, I could break something because of my overreaction. And
absolutely.
You just have to not get injured. And so I'm talking about obviously silly things outside of the gym, but in the gym as well. So for masters athletes, that requires getting warm and doing mobility really well, really focusing on that. I know we talked about this last week, and you have to try to maximize the amount of time you're in the gym. But the biggest thing you could do to get injured is just try to jump in with 20-year-olds and do things you shouldn't be doing, or do something without getting warm, or work outside of your capacity, or go for that 1 rep max when it's not the right day to do that. So I won't give any more examples of that, but be smart and avoid injury at all costs. It's just, it really, really, really sets you back. So again, we could talk about all the ways to not get injured, but I'm just going to say do some thought process around what you can do to avoid injury for yourself, and you'll be on the right track, especially as a new guy, because a lot of people get hurt within their first 6 months because they do things they shouldn't do, which goes all the way back to Rick's first point. Check your ego at the door so that you don't do stupid things and you don't get injured, which is, very simple.
And remember, a 25-year-old more than likely will heal faster than someone in our age groups.
Oh, by far.
Ricky Garrard was plain spoken about, hey, this is how I live my life outside of the gym. People tell me I probably shouldn't have been riding my bike like that, but this is what I do. And I could bet you that he'll be back in no time, where for us, that would have been a lot longer recovery and a lot of kicking ourselves for doing something like that. But, it's a recipe that has worked for him up until this point, and now he's, has to sit out a season.
Yep.
But his healing is hell of a lot faster than ours, without a doubt.
Yeah, he'll be back. Without a doubt, right. And I will say that I have an adductor injury from 2018 that healed, and I made it a bit agitated during our 1 rep max clean in quarterfinals, which was 2.5, 3 months ago. And I'm still recovering from going for a PR clean that day that I didn't need to do. And all right, so I'm going to deal with this injury, and it's going to be here through the games. It's not going to go away. So that's that. That's why we don't do stupid things. We don't need to go for PRs when we do
Right.
good enough. But I got swept up in the moment of the room, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
We
So
learn.
we learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got a good segue here, and I'm just gonna segue into our tips of the week, because
Aha.
I
Know where you're going.
yeah, with this in mind, so I was in Arkansas, training at Rock City CrossFit for a couple of weeks. Really great CrossFit gym. If you're in Little Rock, you got to pop into those guys. They're great. I've got a friend Nick there. Of course, Adam is headed to the semifinals. I got to train with those guys. But my first day there, Adam pulled up his phone and he was warming up using the GoWOD mobility app. And, at the games, you and I both received a 1-year subscription to GoWOD as part of the swag that we got for the games. And to be honest, I haven't used it at all. I maybe did an assessment like a couple of months after that, and I just really haven't used it. So I was like, okay, well, let me just plug in a couple of movements for my workout as a pre-workout warm-up, and let's see what it spits out as warm-up movements for me. And day one, this was like 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, this is 10 minutes of movements that I don't do on a regular basis as part of my warm-up. And I found it to be really dang good. And I wish that GoWOD Mobility was, I would love to be a sponsored athlete by them. I wish I had an affiliate code. I wish I had a discount code. I've got nothing. I've just actually been using an app that's been out there for a couple of years now. I've never really paid attention to it, but I have included a 10-minute GoWOD Mobility segment as part of my warm-up. And the thing I really like this morning, I did heavy back squats and squat snatches. That was my primary component for my first session. So again, I just put in to the pre-workout, I tell the app that I'm going to be doing squat snatch and back squats, and then it puts together a 10-minute warm-up protocol based on my own mobility limitations in my shoulders and my hips. And then it runs me through 10 minutes of effort that prepare me for those movements, and I am sweating profusely. Well, I'm also in Dallas, Texas. It's 85
Well, I was
degrees.
going to say that's going to add to it. Yeah.
I could just be standing there and I'd be sweating profusely, but I am quite hot, and it's really good. It was a sleeper, something I haven't used for a long time. And while I wish I had some sort of like reason to promote it, honestly, it's just that good. So if you haven't tried it out, it's great. It gets me doing things I don't usually do as part of my warm up, and I think that's what I like the most.
Well, and who doesn't have 10 minutes too? That's the other thing.
Right?
Especially even as we talk about how truncated we are on times, things like that. But if that's going to ensure that you're properly warm for what you're trying to accomplish that day, and avoid injury, well worth that investment in time.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah, GoWOD, Pliability, the apps are so much better now, and I think a lot of coaching staffs, try to replicate something like that, just to put each of their athletes in a very good position to be warm, especially early in the morning. You just haven't moved that much yet in the day compared to coming in for a 5:30 p.m. class. My pick of the week, if you know me, I like to tape almost every finger I have. I go through tape at an obscene pace, and I love to promote some brand that I know that everybody knows, and I was needing a resupply. I'll tell you, I happen to choose a name brand that I have no experience with whatsoever. In fact, it's about as generic as you can get, just called Athletic Tape. Found it on Amazon, and I'm like, oh boy, the price, the quantity, something's not going to be very good about it. Turns out, a few days in, it's probably the best tape I've used. It's, if you use tape and, you get it. And I just feel like I get teased like I need tape just to warm up on my fingers. But that's how I roll. It just makes me feel like I'm ready to go. You could only handstand walk if there's enough tape on your fingers. I found that to be the case too. Can't do it anywhere else. I have a problem, but I can't even recommend this brand because I don't know what it is. If I were you, Jason, I'd probably put a link in the show notes, but I'm not sure it's worth it. It's great. It's a lot of tape for a very little price on Amazon, and I'm so far, as I said, a few days in, a pretty happy customer. Crazy, but those in the gym know I love my tape.
Well, Rick, be sure to send me a link to that tape. I'll make sure it's in
I'll
the
probably
show
do that.
notes so
Yep.
that people can
You
link to
got
it on
it.
Amazon. And with that, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Masters in Motion podcast. If you found this episode to be helpful, we'd be grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, guys, get bolder, not older. See ya.